So the other day I posted this on my community tab for an NHL agree or disagree. You guys have seen them on the channel before and you guys really seem to like them, and don't be upset if yours wasn't featured in today's video because there is going to be many more chances. I really like using the community tab to really get you guys involved with videos, but if you don't know how this works, I post this on my community tab. You guys go in the comments of it, give me an opinion about a player, about a team, or just about the NHL in general, and I'll pick a couple out, put them in the video, and then give you guys my thoughts and let you guys know if I agree or if I disagree. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Starting off with one from Garrett Kraft, who says Draisaitl won't come close to 100 points again next season, and I thought this was an interesting one because everyone knew how good Draisaitl was this year and coming into this season, but I'm not quite sure a lot of people thought he would crack the 100 point margin. Obviously we did have, I believe, 5 players over 100 points, which is very impressive. A lot of players had really just career offensive years, but I'm gonna go agree. I don't think he's gonna get 100 points. I think he might come close though. I think he'll be around 90 to 95, but scoring 100 points in back-to-back seasons is definitely not something easy to do, and when you have a guy like Connor McDavid on the team that is most likely going to do it, it really is rare for 2 guys on one team to have 100 plus points in 1 year. Obviously they did it this past season, so they most definitely could do it again, but I'm gonna agree. I think he's probably gonna be around 85 to 95 points next year. This next one I was a pretty big fan of, from Carmen F, who says Mantha will have 30 plus goals next season. Me being a Red Wings fan, I certainly hope he does. I think he would have this year if he did stay healthy, but he did have that hand injury for fighting, so hopefully he learned his lesson and knows that he shouldn't be fighting and should just stay on the ice because we need him to score goals. Still had a career high, I believe, of 25 goals this year, so I'm confident next year that he will be a 30 plus goal scorer, so I'm going to agree with this one. I think Mantha has all the skill in the world. He's been playing fantastic for Team Canada at the World Championships, really liking what I'm seeing from him there, and I definitely think he will be a 30 plus goal scorer next season. This next one comes from Steven Loeffler, who says the Vancouver Canucks will make the playoffs next year. This was an interesting one because they kind of surprised a lot of people, with their play this year. They were still competing for a playoff spot pretty late into the season. It was large part due to the Western Conference being weak in terms of the battle for those wildcard spots and not really needing a ridiculous amount of points to get those spots, but nonetheless, not taking anything away from the Canucks, they still had a really good year. I think they're going to look to build on that next season. I think they'll be better. They're going to have a full year with Quinn Hughes. Hopefully full healthy seasons for Pettersson and Brock Besser. I really want to see Brock Besser play a full 82 games because I think he's capable of some pretty remarkable things if he does. It's going to be an interesting year to see what happens with them. Will Thatcher Demko be the full-time starter? I think Markstrom was really good this past season though, so a lot of questions will be answered with the Canucks, but I'm pretty confident that they're going to be a good team. But I am going to disagree. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I definitely could see them really battling for a spot towards the end of the year, almost like what they were doing this year, but just a little bit better. Next up, we have one from UGA NinjaCat 19, who says Carter Hart will start for the Flyers next season and take them to the playoffs. Now, this is an interesting one. I definitely think Philadelphia should be a playoff team next year. They have all the talent in the world, and if Carter Hart can really be that reliable #1 goaltender for the entire year, they haven't had a reliable starter for a couple of years now. They tried it with Peter Mrazek, didn't work out. Brian Elliott couldn't stay healthy. Neuwirth didn't work out. So I really hope Carter Hart stays healthy, plays a really good year for this team, because it must suck having a really offensively talented team and having a pretty good D-core as well and just never really getting that consistent goaltending. And I think Carter Hart can bring them that. He showed glimpses of what he can do this next season, so I'm going to agree with this one. I think he will be the starter for the majority of the season. Hopefully they get a decent backup that can play maybe 20 games so Carter Hart doesn't have to have a ridiculous workload, but I'm pretty confident that he can lead this team into the playoffs because they are still very talented. This next one comes from Bingo Fuel, who says Pastrnak will score 50 next season. I'm going to agree with this one. I believe it was last summer I made a video talking about 5 players who I think could score 50 goals this season, and I know I had David Pastrnak in that video. I think he has all the tools in the world too. He plays with great setup men in Bergeron and Marchand. If that whole line can stay healthy for a full 82 game season, I think most definitely David Pastrnak will be a 50 goal scorer. I mean, he has all the tools in the world, and I think even without them, maybe he could be a 50 goal scorer. He's still young, still getting better. I think he's a great offensive talent, and I'm going to agree with this one. I think Pastrnak will be a 50 goal scorer next season. Next up, we have one from Faris Ibrahim. I hope I am saying your name right. I apologize in advance if I do mess up any more names in this video, but nonetheless, they say Duchesne signs with Montreal in the offseason. Now, it's rumored that Duchesne is most likely going to be leaving the Columbus Blue Jackets. In my video predicting where I think all the big name free agents will go, I actually went out on a limb and predicted he would stay, but I'm kind of leaning towards changing that prediction, and the team that is most likely linked to Matt Duchesne is the Montreal Canadiens, and I think it would be a fantastic fit. You have Matt Duchesne at that number 1 center spot, and then maybe put Domi at the second line center spot, or move him back to the wing and then play Kotkaniemi at the second line center spot. I think it would really make this lineup really flexible and a lot more talented as well. He would really be that number 1 guy, as he showed he could be for Ottawa, and towards the end of his run in Columbus into the playoffs, he was pretty fantastic as well. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens with Matt Duchesne, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say I agree. I think he is going to be a Montreal Canadien on opening night next season. This next one comes from Fat Kid Inc., who says at least 7 of the teams that made the playoffs this year will miss next year. I'm going to disagree. I think that is a little bit extreme. That is almost an entire conference of playoff teams. Obviously 8 make it from each conference, and if 7 teams that made it this year miss next year, that would make for a pretty fresh and entertaining playoffs next year, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't really think that's realistic. I think 3 or 4, maybe 2 or 3 teams definitely, could miss the playoffs next year that made it this year. I look at a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are probably going to lose a lot of their top players from free agency, but yeah, I'm going to disagree. I don't think 7 teams will miss next year that made it this year, but maybe 2 or 3. I think free agency will play a big part in answering this question, but I'm definitely going to disagree for right now. Next up, one that comes from Aiden Turnbull, who says Kaapo Kakko will score 35 or more goals in his rookie season. I'm going to disagree, because that is obviously a lot of goals, especially, for a number 2 pick. I think he has all the potential in the world to. I think after his first couple of seasons, he will most definitely be a consistent 35 to maybe 40 goal scorer in the NHL. He showed what he can do against NHL talent at the World Championships. He's been fantastic, but it is still rare that players come in their rookie year and really score that many goals. I think maybe around 25 to 30 goals and maybe like a 60 or 55 point season for Kaapo Kakko definitely could be in the mix next season, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope he has all the success in the world, but for right now, I'm going to play it safe and disagree with this one. Next up, we have one from a Predators fan, I am assuming, Austin Bober. Victor Arvidsson will score 40 goals next season. I'm going to agree with this one. I think most definitely if he stayed healthy this year, he would have been a 40 goal scorer. He had a ridiculous amount of goals per game ratio this year because he was hurt a lot, but when he was healthy, he was scoring at a pretty ridiculous rate. He had at one point it was 30 something goals and then under 10 assists, I think, which was pretty remarkable, but nonetheless, I definitely agree with this one. I think Victor Arvidsson has the potential to be one of the NHL's best goal scorers, and he's one of my favorite players in the league, so I definitely hope it happens. So I agree. I think he will score 40 next year. Next up, we have one from, I'm not even going to try to say that name, but you know who you are if you are watching this video, and it is Svechnikov will score 35 goals next year if he plays on the top line. I know it's a stretch, but you never know. I'm assuming you mean Evgeny Svechnikov from the Red Wings, and I definitely agree. I think he'll be a 50 goal scorer. I'm just joking. Obviously, Andrei Svechnikov, his brother from the Carolina Hurricanes, had a pretty solid rookie season with 20 goals, and I honestly think he is capable of 35. I'm going to put the line at 30 as my prediction for next year, so I'm going to disagree with this one, and I don't really think it's much of a stretch, like you said, here in this post, because coming into the league, he was seen as the best goal scorer in the draft class, and he definitely showed all the potential in the world that he can be a 35 plus goal scorer in his rookie season. 20 goals in your first year is a pretty impressive thing to do, but I'm going to set the bar a little bit lower. My prediction for him next year is around 25 to 30, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he does score 35, but for right now, I'm probably going to disagree with this one. Next up, we have one from Ryan Donzi, who says Detroit makes the playoffs next year. I'm going to disagree with this one, but obviously I hope I'm wrong. I think I made a video a couple weeks ago trying to look at and predict when Detroit will get back into the playoffs, and I think I said not this year coming, but maybe next year is where they will really start to be competitive again and get back into the hunt for a playoff spot. I do think this year we will be better than last year. We have a lot of young players that I hope come in and play a pretty significant role. Taro Hirose, I was very impressed with. Philip Zadina played his 9 games. I think he's going to be a full-time member next next year, and with guys like Larkin, Athanasiou, Mantha, and Bertuzzi getting better, I think the future is bright. And with Steve Yzerman at the helm, and we saw what he did in Tampa Bay, so I'm pretty excited. But I'm gonna say I disagree. I don't think we're gonna make the playoffs next year. Next up, we have one from Gensey Season. I'm assuming that's a Jake Gensel kind of name there, and it says Anaheim bounces back next year with Gibson winning the Vezina and Steele breaking 50 points. I'm gonna disagree with this one. Obviously, there's a couple parts to the question. I don't think Anaheim is going to be a playoff team next year, but I really like John Gibson. I think he is one of the best goaltenders in the NHL, and I really do hope Anaheim's rebuild doesn't take too long, because I don't want to see John Gibson's prime really wasted on one of the worst teams in the NHL. He's one of my favorite goaltenders, and in terms of Steele breaking 50 points, I'm also going to disagree with that one as well, but I think he can play a pretty significant role in their team next year. It's going to be an interesting couple of years for Anaheim, but for right now, I'm going to disagree. I don't quite think they bounce back just yet. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and like I said at the start, don't be too upset if your comment wasn't featured in this video. Just keep an eye on the community tab. I'm going to be doing this more and more, especially with the season winding down and us being in the Stanley Cup final, because there's not really going to be too much to talk about in the summer, so I'm going to try to get you guys involved in a lot of videos. So with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.